Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today it is episode 120, where we are talking about a very big and exciting horror movie that has just dropped, Obsession. It is the newest film from Blumhouse and Neon. I saw it in a pretty full theater on a Thursday night, and it was a lot of fun. I'm very excited to talk about this movie today. There has been a bunch of buzz over the weekend. I'm recording this on the holiday Sunday, or the Sunday before the holiday Monday, and the amount of people I see that are going to watch this movie in theaters is really fun. So we're gonna have a great discussion about it today. Before we hop into Obsession, though, I hope you are all doing well. A couple of things to mention up top before we jump into the news section. Don't forget to check out my YouTube video from last month where I talked about all the things that I bought physical media wise and all of the comic books that I got as well. Really fun. We're also going to talk about a comic book today. Then, of course, timestamps below. I do not want to spoil anything for you guys, so you can look at the timestamps of this episode wherever you are listening to it. We'll have the news section, then we'll have the non-spoiler section, then we will have the spoiler section. It's going to be a lot of fun. But okay, without further ado, I think we should really jump into the news because there is a lot to talk about. So let's do it. Let's get into the news. Okay, so our first piece of news actually comes from the Cannes Film Festival, and these two things may seem like they don't go together, but the Fast and Furious first movie was shown at the Cannes Film Festival in a special display with a bunch of the cast in attendance, and this is where Vin Diesel announced that 4 new live-action Fast and Furious TV shows are in the works at Peacock. He said, quote, "For the last decade, we have realized that the fans have wanted more. They wanted us to expand the legacy characters, their stories. Now, a Fast and Furious TV series is officially in the works. That is confirmed. While Vin Diesel said that 4 shows were in the works, a source confirms that it's actually only 1. So here was the full quote. "The legacy characters, their stories, and for the last decade, the desire has been for us to enter the TV space that Fallon has mastered. And I had to wait until it was right. It became right when Donna Langley started to oversee it all, because that's when I knew that the integrity of the characters, the international appeal, what makes us all feel like family," he said the word, there we go, "would be protected in the TV space." The news that I have here today is that Peacock is launching 4 shows from the Fast and Furious universe. So that is just not happening. There will be 1 show with some legacy characters, not 4. They are also apparently having a very difficult time getting the next film going because the budget is just so high on those movies and there is just so much money that is needed and they don't make enough money to justify that. Like the last one, I don't think it made, what was that, Fast X? I don't think it made enough money to really earn its budget back, but it is a very classic Vin Diesel thing to be like, yes, we actually have 4 shows that are taking off when apparently it's confirmed that it's only 1. It's like the last film when they were filming it, or was it this film that the director stepped away? Was it Justin Lee? Who was the director that stepped away from Fast and Furious 11, X, whatever, whichever one? All of these titles get so confusing to me. The Fast and Furious movies, there's just really no sense to the titles of them. They just go by numbers. Some of them don't. Some of them go by Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and then it's like Tokyo Drift. And it's actually crazy. Yesterday, I went thrifting. So we went to a Value Village and there were 2 steelbooks at this Value Village, and both of them are equally as crazy to see at a used secondhand store. The first one was The Hangover Part 2 on a steelbook. It looked super scratched up. So I was like, hey, that's not worth my $8. The other one was Fast and Furious 6, which still had the original digital code in it that expired, 15 years ago when the movie came out. So kind of 2 crazy pulls. I didn't end up buying either of them just because the steelbook cases were so scratched up. I'm like, I could probably find that on Facebook Marketplace without all the scratches on the front. Anyways, Vin Diesel making up stuff about the Fast and Furious movies. What else is new today? Let's move to our next story though. So Neon has landed the rights to Matt Johnson's untitled film that is starring Finn Wolfhard. Inspired by true events, it follows a journalist played by Finn Wolfhard who investigates the story of a Vice Canada editor using drug mules for a cocaine smuggling operation. Now, this is a true story. This was from Vice Canada. It was this big media corporation that went down a few years ago. That is where Nirvana, the band, the show, had its 2 television seasons. The non-web series ones were published via or produced via Vice. And apparently there was tons of crazy stuff going on behind the scenes at Vice. It's sort of a Canadian folklore legend type thing, which is really interesting. interesting. I'm very excited for this, though. It feels like Finn Wolfhard has been sort of warming up and is the perfect muse for Matt Johnson to be in his next project. He's a lot like Dominic Sessa, and I don't even know if we talked about the Tony trailer a couple weeks ago for the Tony biopic about Anthony Bourdain. I thought it looked really good, and I think it's the first movie that Matt Johnson has not written that he is directing. It doesn't have all the quirks of Jared, his normal cinematographer. Instead, it was actually Michael Bauman, so it's cool to see him sort of mixing in these different arenas, and I think Matt Johnson's just a really interesting filmmaker, and I'm excited to see what he does with this movie as well. I think Finn Wolfhard, he's a very good actor. He's one of the, Stranger Things kids that's actually doing something right now. I'm sure this isn't going to come out for a little while because he has the Tony film coming out. Then Matt Johnson said him and Jay McCarroll, I think, are actually doing something right now. So it's going to be a little while. Our next story, though, speaking of big directors coming out with another great film, I mean, I don't know if I'd put them on the same level, but Peter Jackson is apparently currently writing a new script and plans to direct a Adventures of Tintin sequel. So this is a follow-up to his movie that came out, I want to say like 12 years ago or something like that. It's the fully animated sort of Polar Express style rotoscope motion capture film that came out. And I remember this. I actually read a lot of the Tintin books in school in French because that was like the French requirement training. I don't really have a relationship to Tintin, I don't think. I'm not like a diehard fan of these series, but it is interesting that Tintin is something that just keeps going and going. It's the most translated story, I think, or like most translated children's book, Tintin. It's available in so many languages. Now, at first, people were excited for this because Peter Jackson, he was being honored at the Cannes Film Festival. I think he was getting a Palme d'Or or honorary Palme d'Or like John Travolta did, but he very quickly lost the crowd because he said, oh, well, I view AI as just another special effect. And the amount of people online who went from 0 to 100 so quickly, they were all like, yes, Peter Jackson's back. This is so exciting. Maybe he'll start doing more big movies other than Tintin. And then literally 2 hours later in an interview, he's like, yeah, well, I don't really care about AI. Like, it's just another special effect to me and should be used. And then all of those same people were like, fuck, we lost another one to the dark side. And it's pretty lame how many directors are really advocating for it right now. Like Darren Aronofsky yesterday was trying to quote Orson Welles and being like, that AI is on our side and we need to not fall behind the times. Or Demi Moore at the opening jury sort of press conference was like, well, we can't just fight AI. It's already here. We need to work with it. And all of the other jury members like Chloe Zhao, Stellan Skarsgård were all just rolling their eyes like, oh my God. And Park Chan-wook, who's literally the president of the Cannes jury this year, who just put out No Other Choice, which is about AI and like work stoppages. Hilarious. You couldn't write this stuff, but disappointing to see Peter Jackson falling down that rabbit hole. I mean, crazy that one of the most honest people talking about AI right now is Seth Rogen of all people, who said, oh, if you use AI to write your scripts, you're kind of a loser and you're not really writing. And he was like, I've seen so many Instagram videos where people will be like, oh, Hollywood is cooked after we made this video. And then it's the most dog shit video you've ever seen. And it's, why is Seth Rogen on the right side of history and we're losing Peter Jackson to the AI nerds? I can't believe what's going down. But anyways, that is coming out. A Tintin, a new Adventures of Tintin film, a French staple, I guess. Is it Belgian or French? I actually cannot remember ever. But we're getting a new Tintin movie from Peter Jackson. Another big sort of, I don't know, franchise, I guess, that's getting a sequel. Grown Ups 3 is officially in the works at Netflix with Adam Sandler. So Variety confirms that Grown Ups 3 is officially in the works, while it's rumored that at least the core 5 actors of the franchise, Sandler, Chris Rock, David Spade, Kevin James, and Rob Schneider, will return. The streamer did not confirm any casting news. Kyle Newachuk, who did Murder Mystery, Happy Gilmore 2, will direct. So clearly Adam Sandler wants to pay and get another mansion somewhere. He's doing Grown Ups 3s, all in for the paycheck jobs right now. He truly was not lying. When he was not nominated for Uncut Gems, he said, I'm going to make the most dog shit movies after, and then they're going to regret not nominating me. And he has done that. He's made some true blue stinkers since the failed nomination, or the snub, I should say. Happy Gilmore 2, what the fuck was that? It's just a Budweiser commercial that's 90 minutes long. Celebrity cameos, felt like an SNL sketch, shot like a Tide Pods commercial, just so goddamn boring. I'm surprised that they're still all wanting to work with Rob Schneider. Like, he's one of the most hated people in America right now, or one of the most hated celebrities. Like, anytime a celebrity dies, he'll like tweet or something like that, oh, was he vaccinated? He's one of the most insensitive people, and he's just such such a loser. His own daughter doesn't like him, and he always gets booed at every comedy show he does. And he's even gone on the tour with like Adam Sandler and friends, or what's the name of the tour he did with all these other comedians. And Rob Schneider was warming up the crowd. He was sort of the opener, and he started doing political material. And then Adam Sandler walked out and was like, "All right, thanks, man," and pushed him off the stage. Just like, sometimes, guys, it's okay to dump your loser friends over political differences. I understand the need to bridge the gap and talk to people who you have political differences with. I absolutely agree. That is essential to this environment. But sometimes, there's just no going back. Sometimes you have a lunatic like Rob Schneider, and it's like, you know what? Some people are just not able to be saved. But okay, let's move into the big story that I wanted to focus on today. I've kind of breezed through these other stories because this week on Twitter, Matt Reeves, once an hour over 2 days, he had 2 6-hour periods where he was posting a GIF of each cast member for The Batman Part 2. This broke the internet. Like, the amount of casting tweets that got more views than some movies' movie trailers do was insane. So here is the order of the cast. We'll go through one by one and think of who they might be playing. First up, Robert Pattinson as Batman. Of course, he used a GIF from The Batman. It's fun that he's using the GIFs from his own film. Then we had Jeffrey Wright, obviously, as Jim Gordon, Colin Farrell, and Andy Serkis coming back as the Penguin and Alfred. So he started with sort of on the first day, the first 6 hours, he was doing all the confirmed people coming back. Like Jamie Lawson is coming back as Mayor Bella Real, which I am so fucking pumped for. I'm really hoping she plays an important part in the story because I thought the mayoral aspect of the Batman is always so interesting. And then Gil Perez Abraham as Officer Martinez, who's largely sort of memed on the internet because of this one Twitter account. Really, really, really funny that Matt Reeves decided to announce him. But here we go. Here are some new casting gifts or announcements, I guess, that he made. Scarlett Johansson. Now, he did not confirm who anybody is playing. He just said welcome back and posted the gif. So Scarlett Johansson is apparently playing Gilda Dent. That is the girlfriend of or the wife of Harvey Dent, I believe, not the sister. So don't get that confused. He used a gif from Under the Skin where she has dark hair and she looks exactly like Gilda Dent. Fantastic choice. Then we had Sebastian Stan as Harvey Dent, or he's just using a gif of Sebastian Stan. He looks very Harvey Dent in it. Very excited about Scarlett Johansson joining. I think she's a fantastic actress. She is doing so much amazing work right now. Post Marvel, she's going to be in The Exorcist, The Batman Part 2. She's in Paper Tiger right now. But her being in The Batman Part 2 as Gilda Dent, probably playing a villain or possibly playing a villain. I would love if she was the Phantasm as well, if they were doing this in live action. I highly doubt it though, because it seems like Matt Reeves is mostly interested in The Long Halloween and Dark Victory. But after Scarlett Johansson, yes, he posted Sebastian Stan. He's playing Harvey Dent. That is widely confirmed. His stylist and I think his publicists have even confirmed it. Although he hasn't outright said what character he is playing, he has confirmed himself, Sebastian Stan, that he is going to be in The Batman Part 2. That's super exciting. Then we have Charles Dance as Christopher Dent, the father of Harvey Dent, who is no doubt going to be the overall sort of mafia, rich kingpin type dude that is kind of trying to swoop in after Carmine Falcone's death in the first one. Maybe leading into the Court of Owls if they're this other rich, reputable family from Gotham that Bruce has had lifelong ties to. I would absolutely love that. So those three already got me very, very, very excited. Then we have Sebastian Koch, who is a German actor. He was in Live Free or Die Hard, or A Good Day to Die Hard, one of the Die Hard sequels. Interesting. People think, oh, is he playing Harvey Bullock, or is he going for a more serious sort of doctor role? Maybe he's Dr. Arkham, or maybe he's Hugo Strange. I don't know. He could kind of pull it off with the versatility that he has in his look. But the big surprise to everyone, including myself, I had not heard a single rumor, not just about Sebastian Koch, but this last one that he dropped in particular, which blew up the internet. Brian Tyree Henry is going to be in this movie in an unconfirmed role, although Matt Reeves did like a tweet saying he is playing Detective Harvey Bullock, one of my favorite Batman characters that I absolutely love in the animated series. I would love to see Harvey Bullock and Jim Gordon, played by Brian Tyree Henry and Jeffrey Wright. A lot of people are sort of theorizing, oh, is he going to play a young Lucius Fox? I don't think we're going to see Lucius Fox in this trilogy. It just seems like Bruce wouldn't be one to reach out to Wayne Industries or Wayne Enterprises and say, hey, Lucius, I want more toys because I'm secretly Batman. He's a bit of a drifter. He's by himself. Seems like he'd rather go his own way. But that's the cast for The Batman Part 2 for now. There might be more new people. We never know. Incredibly excited. Filming starts next month. He also put out a camera camera test last week for the Batmobile driving in snow. It looks really exciting, looks gorgeous. I'm excited to see Eric Messerschmidt as the cinematographer on this one. I'm bummed that we're not getting Greg Fraser back, but Eric Messerschmidt, very, very, very good choice. I think when he worked with Fincher on The Killer, I thought that movie looked absolutely gorgeous. So I'm excited to see how creepy and gross and ugly Gotham can look at Christmas time with the beautiful snow. I love Batman Returns purely because of the snow. I think otherwise, I don't know, the movie's not amazing. I don't know, maybe it's better than the original Batman. It's tough to say, but I'm excited for Winter Batman and the Batman Part 2. No doubt we will get set photos because they are shooting on location. I believe they're once again going to shoot in Liverpool, in Glasgow, and maybe in London as well. They shot all over the UK and Ireland last time. So I'm excited for this. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the Batman Part 1. It's my favorite movie of all time, probably. I would say of all time, of any movie. I could just watch it every single day for the rest of my life as a giant Batman fan. But that is it for the news today, because I think it's time that we talk about a little horror movie called Obsession. Again, timestamps below. You don't want anything spoiled for you. This movie is absolutely berserk, guys. I advise you, go watch this movie, Obsession. It is a theater experience you will not forget. But okay, let's do it. Let's talk about Obsession. Obsession is a 2026 horror film coming in at 1 hour, 49 minutes. It is directed and written by Curry Barker, who is mostly known for his sort of YouTube comedy. I would say he does a lot of sketch comedy. The film was made on a budget of $750,000 to $1 million. Very positive reviews right now. 8.2 on IMDb, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% audience score as well. 4.2 average on Letterboxd with a 4-star mode, just narrowly beating out 5 stars and 4.5 stars. The synopsis for Obsession. After breaking the mysterious One Wish Willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. The film stars Michael Johnston as Bear Bailey, Andy Navarrete as Nikki Freeman, Cooper Tomlinson as Ian, Megan Lawless as Sarah, Andy Richter as Carter, Haley Fitzgerald as Viola, Darren Toonder as Harry, and Anthony Pavone as Reggie. But here we go. These are my initial thoughts on Obsession. I think Obsession is a wildly creepy, incredibly funny, like laugh out loud, gut-wrenching, uncomfortable time at the movies. I'm not sure I was able to sit through any scene in this movie without flinching or sort of having to squint my eyes a bit because I didn't want to fully see what was going on. This movie is something that is genuinely horrifying. I can finally say this is a horror movie that is hard to watch. My theater, I was in a pretty full theater on the Thursday night, like I said in the intro, and this is one of the most reactive crowds I have been with in a while. This was like, and not, Marvel movie reactive, where it's like, oh my God, Captain America lifted the hammer. People were laughing at every joke. People were disgusted by some of the violence, and people were genuinely cringing at some of the very awkward moments in this movie that were just hilarious to live through. I mean, let's talk about the performances, because the cast of this movie I think is brilliant, specifically one performer in general. But let's start with Michael Johnston, who is kind of the lead of this film. He plays Bear Bailey, who's this kind of dorky guy that lives by himself. One thing I found very confusing about these characters is how old are they? Do they all live alone? Because they're all talking about college, or are they going to college? Are they done college? Are they just working? Are they in high school? I found that a little bit confusing. I'm sure that's answered in the film. If someone who watched Obsession, let me know. I'm very confused because they're all old enough to buy drinks in public. So clearly they're 21. Are they all in college right now, but applying to other schools, or I don't know. Anyways, seems like a small detail, but Bear Bailey, the character played by Michael Johnston, I think Michael Johnston is fantastic in this movie. He plays this really desperate, pathetic loser guy that has a crush on a girl and doesn't realize how he is taking advantage of the situation. And that is a big part of this movie. I think he plays the vulnerability exceptionally well. But the main star of this movie, and I think I'm trying to remember the last horror movie I watched where everyone was talking about one performance, and that is Indy Navarrete as Nikki Freeman. She is the girlfriend, or not even the girlfriend. She's the crush that has the One Wish Willow snapped in half, and she is affected by this. She's essentially playing two people in some ways, or multiple people, because it's like a personality disorder. And it's one of the best horror performances I have ever watched in a movie theater. Like, I could not believe some of the physical things that she's doing in this film, just the random temperament breakouts that she has where she'll just lose control all of a sudden. She's so unpredictable, and I think that's one of the biggest selling points of this movie is the unpredictability that comes with a performance like hers. It was just so much fun to watch. I couldn't believe every scene with her. She was just continually blowing my expectations away. Then we have Cooper Tomlinson as Ian, this kind of douchebaggy best friend of Bear Bailey, who you kind of question, oh, is he in over his head and not really helping him and guiding him in a poor way? Or is he actually just doing the right thing and telling him, like, no, just ask her out? I think he's a very interesting best friend character because it's not clear, is he fully good for Bear? Is he bad for him? But one of the shining stars that I think is actually a very underrated point of this movie is Megan Lawless as Sarah. She is this other girl in the friendship group who is very kind to Bear and is very sympathetic, and it seems like they get along very well. And she's kind of this sort of secondary girl that is very clearly interested in Bear. And this isn't a spoiler for the story, but it's clear that I think, you know, they have an actual chemistry. She might be interested in him versus Bear is so distracted by Nikki and so madly in love with her, but too almost paralyzed in his fear and his fear of rejection to do anything about it. But there's always Sarah there to give a shoulder to lean on. And I just thought Megan Lawless played the role so perfectly. Quick shout out, Andy Richter was hilarious as Carter, who is Sarah's dad in the film. He owns the music store they all work at. Just so funny. But okay, other than the performances, I do want to talk about Curry Barker as a director because, I mean, Curry Barker, it may have a pretty simple and straightforward shot list in this film for me. Like, it's not done in a very fancy way. It's not very technically out there and sort of expanding on crazy things and, oh, what could we do with direction and how can we move the camera and get an impeccable shot list. It's shot very much like an indie amateur horror film, and I think that plays into this movie in a lot of ways in a good way. I think this sort of amateur scaled back tone of this movie really does help the selling point because you have to sit in this atmosphere so well and you're not being taken out of the movie because of all this technical stuff that's going on outside of it, and you get to really just focus on the character dynamics and the morality that's at play. He knows how to build atmosphere really well and use background. I think one of the things I love about this movie so much is you're always expecting something to happen. Like, there's no scene in this movie where you're like, okay, I think the big moment passed. Now it's just this simple two characters talking. You're always looking out of a window. You're always looking at a doorway. You're always looking in a dark corner. And I think, Hokum was a movie that just came out. I think that movie built atmosphere really well, but didn't use its story enough, versus this movie, I think, has a really good story to it, a really good premise. Maybe it doesn't expand upon that premise too much, or it stretches it too thin possibly. But I think the way both these movies, Hokum and Obsession, are using atmosphere, are using dark corners, are using jump scares, not in cheap ways, but are actually satisfying jump scares that really do make you question what the fuck you're watching. Obsession in particular uses jump scares so well because it's not actually like things popping out of nowhere randomly. It's more so someone raising their voice. Well, specifically, Nikki will just start screaming, and it's so jarring because you're almost in the room like, Nikki, please stop yelling. And it's just so uncomfortable, but you can see someone that is mentally unwell. And it's just fantastic how Curry Barker has guided all of his cast to just be so perfectly in this world as these young people that are inexperienced in relationships. And I think it just really plays off so well. And the story, let's talk about the story outside of Curry Barker. Obviously, he wrote it, but I think this is just a fantastic, careful what you wish for movie. Like, it's such a great warning sign that the grass is always greener on the other side. It is a story that I think also takes sort of the premise to the very limits. Like, I don't think this could go any further than this movie right here. In fact, maybe it could have been drawn back, or I don't know, a little more nuanced in its dialogue perhaps. But this movie, I think it has its gimmick, which is this One Wish Willow, and it takes it to as far as it will go in the most brilliant ways. It does some very fun tricks with the premise as well. It makes you question what are the possibilities of it, what can you and can't you do. But at the same time, I think what I really liked about this movie is how much it's letting you sit in the characters' setup. Before we even get the big One Wish Willow gimmick, we really do get to know these young people really well. Like, there's probably the opening 15 to 20 minutes where we're getting to know Bear, and he has just suffered some loss. He is vulnerable. Maybe the One Wish Willow is actually a bit of a stupid choice. And it's a very interesting setup for the story where you're sympathetic towards everyone, and you, by the end of the movie, are questioning, who am I actually rooting for? What is happening? As the Jeremy Cullen impression of Tucker Carlson would say on SNL. What are we doing? What's going on? But the setup is so brilliant because you do start to question, does Nikki actually like Bear? Is she just a very flirtatious person? Has she told someone in the friendship group that, oh, I do like Bear, but he just hasn't asked me out? You're not really clear on that, but there is this possibility that, oh, she actually has feelings for him, and he is truly just so scared of rejection and such a loser and so pathetic in his little world that he won't ask her out because he's just too scared. What this movie also does brilliantly, and what we've seen a lot in horror recently, is towing the line between comedy and horror, being really so tonally flexible that one scene you're laughing so hard until it becomes creepy, or you're laughing so hard because it's creepy, or you're just laughing because it's an amazing joke and like, oh, that's a great bit. Cooper Tomlinson, who plays Ian in this film, is in all of Curry Barker's sketch comedy sketches online. You can actually look them up even on Instagram, and you can really feel this was written by a sketch comedy person, you know, just like Weapons with Zach Krieger, just like Get Out and all of Jordan Peele's films. You can tell there is a comedy mind behind this movie, and it's really interesting to hear comedy people moving into the horror world and how they talk about those muscles sort of being the same, because the whole thing with comedy and horror is you figure out a premise, you ask what if, and then you study the human reaction to that and see where the line is of how far you can go with audiences and how long they will believe in the premise until it's gone too far and it's too much. And I think that is really, really, really strong here. You can see the connection of a sketch comedian going into the horror world, Curry Barker, and he has talked about himself, you know, moving from the YouTube space to this space, being like Zach Krieger and Jordan Peele and sort of using those similar muscles and being able to make a horror movie that is just really funny. And this movie is really funny. I was laughing out loud at so many points in this movie, not just because of Nikki's insane behavior and the amazing, amazing performance from Indy Navarrete, but there's just so many awkward line readings and little moments like calling a call center or a helpline to talk about the One Wish Willow where you're just like, what the fuck was that when it ends? There isn't just great written bits in this movie. The physical comedy from Indy Navarrete is fantastic, plays off so well. It's so goofy and sort of 80s B horror, and I loved every bit of it. I was just eating it all up. And I think also, you know, like a sketch where sometimes sketches can just go off the rails and you never know what characters are going to do next, this movie had a real unpredictability to it that wasn't just in Indy Navarete's performance, like I said, but just the story in general. I really could not see where it was going. And I think the ending did a good job sort of leaving it in a satisfying way and not just wrapping it up in a logical sense. Like, okay, yeah, I guess that's the only thing that could really happen. I didn't know where things were going to go. And I really enjoyed that because there are just far too many horror movies where it seems like one thing is introduced at the start of the movie and it's like, okay, that's the only way this movie can end, but let's try and enjoy the ride. I was able to enjoy the ride and I was able to enjoy the ending. Maybe this movie is going into some areas where I was like, okay, this is less interesting. I'd like a little bit more sort of digging into the situation or a few more tender moments instead of just scene after scene after scene of Indy Navarrete doing this crazy shit, which don't get me wrong, I love, but at the same time, there were a couple quieter moments in this movie, specifically one scene in a car between two characters that was just like one of the most beautiful moments that I've seen in a horror movie in a little while. I thought it sold the entire film for me of like, oh, these are very young people and this is a very confusing time for them and there are real feelings involved here and it's not just all empty violence and curses and hoaxes and things like that. But that being said, maybe that was my only sort of down point. I have a couple more down points that I'll talk about later, but I will say I'm really enjoying YouTubers moving into the horror space and sort of creating this new path outside of the studio system for getting movies made. And I was listening to the Big Picture podcast where they interviewed Curry Barker, actually, Sean Fennessy, and it's really interesting because he was questioning Curry Barker or he was asking him about, you know, in general in film history, there's been sort of two ways that you get to make studio movies. One is you create an indie, you try and get a bunch of funding and do your best with that. But now in 2026, it seems like the other option is you can, you know, get a social media following, you can get a YouTube following, and then you can start a Kickstarter or you get popularity through that the studios will approach you. Sort of a Chris Stuckman heroin or an iron lung situation with what's his name, Markiplier, versus Curry Barker. You know, he's been doing it on social media and YouTube for a while, and now he has made this after making his is it Milk and Cookies or something along those lines. He made an hour-long film on YouTube. So this is sort of his feature film debut, but not really, because I don't think it counts as a short when it's an hour long. So it's really fun to see, you know, new creators breaking into the space like we've had in so many different industries. And it's not like, you know, news reporting or journalism on red carpets where it's mostly influencers. This is someone who is an actual storyteller and is actually creating pieces of art and stories on the internet and social media in sketch comedy, and is trying to move into a new space after he made an hour-long horror film on YouTube, which you can watch for free. And now he is being trusted by studios. Like, his next film is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I believe, and he has one other that seems really interesting. It's something about ghosts, I believe, or haunting things. Exciting stuff. I really love this new path that people can kind of take. Now, this film as well, you know, it might seem, oh, it's a YouTuber coming in, is not going to be thematically rich. I actually found this film to be extremely thematically interesting in how it talks about toxic relationships and codependency, as well as kind of grooming and rape culture. This is a guy taking advantage of a girl in a bad state because he is so scared of rejection. He's so insecure. You can see where the violence and sort of horrible decisions are coming from, because he is just such a loser from showing Bear as a mistrustworthy guy, or a untrustworthy. I think untrustworthy is probably the correct term, which a lot of movies would be scared to do. I think a lot of people would just sort of initially put Bear out there as, oh, this guy who just walked into the wrong thing, and we have to feel bad for him because he can't talk to his crush, versus Curry Barker's approach, which is, no, Bear is a psychopath. He is making a horrible decision. Everyone is warning him, you know what this relationship looks like to us. It looks like a guy taking advantage of a girl that's in a bad mental space. And he's like, no, she's fine. She's just going through some stuff, but we're all good. We need each other. And I really enjoyed that it's not afraid to show Bear as this very complex, possibly villainous person. Also, I like that this movie does not get lost in explaining the MacGuffin. I think in horror movies, you can either really dive into an investigation of the MacGuffin. What is the thing that everybody's trying to get? What is the gimmick or the trick of the story? Really dive deeply and figure out, how does this work? Explain it to everyone. Or you can just completely sort of drop it out there and be like, look, there's this One Wish Willow thing. We're not going to dive into it deeply. You understand how it works. You get one wish and you can't take it back. And I think the movie kind of does that. It doesn't feel like it needs to explain it very much. It's very clear that this thing works and people go crazy because of it. So use it on your own accord. And I kind of like that. We don't need to get bogged down in all of the lore and the background of every single item that's working in a horror film. Now, here are a couple of my detractors that I just want to briefly mention, because why am I not rating this movie higher? I really enjoyed it. Other than, I think, the story sometimes needing to take a step back and really give us the character moments instead of just, you know, Nikki going insane every single scene, as much fun as that was for me. I also found the score of this film to be very bland and somewhat annoying. It did remind me of early seasons of Stranger Things, or sort of just the synth sounds that we were getting from 2016 to, I would say, 2018, that were so popular. Even earlier, like 2014, just seemed like it was in every amateur project, every Netflix project, every like new wave type thing that was going on. Also, the cinematography, I found it a little bit flat at times, but I will give the crew credit here, because Curry Barker is able to show Nikki in shadows in such interesting ways, and I appreciated that, and how it's framing Nikki sort of in the dark in so many points. But look, my 2 stars and a wish. Star number 1, this movie doesn't hold back. This movie is very, very, very mean. It's fucked up. It's not afraid to show you the awful side of humanity and patheticness of dudes that just are too scared to talk to women because they're afraid of their own insecurities. Star number 2, I think it's just a really fun premise. I like the One Wish Willow. It's simple. They don't go too deep into it. It doesn't get bogged down in the details, but my wish, maybe just deepen the material a little bit by giving us some stronger, sort of slower character moments, because there were 2 scenes, and specifically in this movie, between these 2 characters. I don't want to talk about here because it would be spoilers, but whenever they had conversations, it just felt so deep and lovely. And I feel like we could have got that in a couple other places. But look, overall, I found Obsession to be a really great theater experience. And it's just a super fun, super fucked up, super mean-spirited horror movie that you will not regret watching. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it is just solid, a good time at the movies. Go watch Obsession, but let's jump into spoilers. All right, spoilers for Obsession. You have been warned. So the messages and random outbursts were the real Nikki jumping into her consciousness again. So every once in a while, she would be sort of off on a tangent, going insane. And then suddenly it would be like, she snaps into it. She's like, wait, what was I doing? I'm so sorry. That was so weird. And she would be like, wait, where am I? And these just like little leakages where you can see, oh, there's this other personality in here. And the lunchbox moment where Bear is at work. I was so confused because she has two photos in there for him in his lunchbox. One of them says love you and has like a heart around him, and the other is circling her and being like, not me. And I was like, oh, not me, love you, not me. And I was reading it as one message versus it was supposed to be love you, and then the other one was just, not me, as in this is not me because I am in another body. I am actually in hell. So I thought that was a very, very, very good mechanic, that it's actually sort of a body swap type situation where a demon literally inhabits the body of the person that you are wishing of, or if you're wishing for this, I guess, or whatever thing you implement in your wish, it's actually a demon's work, or it's the devil doing the work because you have to trade a soul for it, or something along those lines. Again, they don't really explain the mechanics of it, which I think is absolutely fine, because we've had so many horror movies that are just getting bogged down in the details. Like I found it was I think The Monkey, that was Oz Perkins' last movie. No, Keeper was his last movie, but the movie before that, The Monkey with Theo James, I found the monkey mechanics were like, okay, sometimes we're just explaining this monkey a little bit too much. And oftentimes there is horror movies that are way more concerned with explaining how things work and doing a heavy investigation of the item, and that's not as much fun versus this movie. Sure, you might have a lot of questions after, but I think it's very clean and clear in its sort of landing of the idea and the actions of the film, and it's much more enjoyable that way. And I really enjoyed the scene where Bear is in the car. He calls the number on the back of the One Wish Willow box, and it's actually Curry Barker. He is the one that answers the phone. This is a voice cameo from him, and he's playing the call center in hell. I thought that was the funniest scene in the movie. I could not stop laughing so hard, where and it's so accurate, because sometimes you call and they're just like, yeah, what is it? And it was the most laid back voice ever. It was just someone that clearly does not care about their job, but they happen to be working at a call center in hell. At the end of the phone call, and this was the clue where everything sort of tied together for me, he said, do you want to talk to her? As in like, do you want to talk to Nikki, the real one? And I was like, oh, so it is a soul situation where she is trapped in hell and a demon has taken sort of the body of Nikki, or some kind of possession where she has just become obsessed with Bear, and as the wish said, loves him more than anything or anyone on the planet. So really clever sort of filmmaking and storytelling and gimmick making. But the one moment in the film where I think I truly turned on Bear, and I was like, okay, he's an irredeemable character, because you do have to understand, at the start of the movie, when we meet Bear, he is clearly this sort of pathetic, isolated, very shy guy who you're like, okay, he's a little bit quirky, and his cat dies within the first 5 minutes of the movie. And you're like, oh, this is very dark and very sad. So he's suffering a loss and he is grieving. But then slowly throughout the movie, you realize, oh, he is taking advantage of Nikki. As much as it seems like Nikki is embarrassing him, he is very clearly in this to establish his feelings and be like, no, you do love me. This is real. And he's so concerned for so much of the movie with this all being real and the authenticity of the wish. And he's like, did you feel this way before? And she's like, yeah, of course I did. And it's just sort of assuring him when it's actually just the demon. But the point where he completely lost me in the movie is where Nikki's like, Bear, come back. She's asleep. It's actually me. Please just kill me. And Bear's like, why? What's so wrong with being with me? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, now it's a taking advantage of situation. Bear has officially become the villain of this story. And I think that's one of the biggest selling points for Obsession, is how sort of the villain perception, I guess, or who is the villain, who is the real bad person, it sort of flips, because at the start of the movie, of course, you're inclined to just believe that Nikki is this evil demon that is trying to kill him and is ruining his life. Whereas what's actually happening is Bear is the villain, because he has used this wish, forced someone into a relationship. And that's why I think deep down he knows he's forced someone into this relationship, but he's so insecure and doesn't want to break it off because, oh, Nikki really loves me. And that's why he's so concerned with the realness of the relationship. So really fantastic writing from Curry Barker. I think it's really flipping the morals of the film on its head head in a lot of different scenes, and it's fun to experience that. And Bear is just so distracted by his tunnel vision of his love for Nikki that he doesn't see how much Sarah really cares for him and has been this shoulder to cry on. I mean, he works with her at this shop along with Ian and Nikki, but Sarah is always the one there to talk to him. And he tells Sarah at the start of the movie, yeah, my cat died today. It hasn't really hit me yet. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And immediately like gives him a hug and assures him like, hey, it's going to be okay. Versus no one else is really like, hey, is something going on? Like what's up? And really the two of them are the only ones that can talk like this to each other, because I found the scene at the start of the movie with the two of them at the bar where they're talking about what's actually going on in his life. And Bear clearly has no issue telling Sarah the things that are kind of going wrong in his life and what's really bothering him, versus Nikki, he's so hesitant to tell her things, even though at the start of the movie she says, oh, there's no one else I can talk to about this stuff because she's becoming a writer. And I found that really interesting, that juxtaposition there where you get that. And the two scenes that I was talking about in the movie that I really liked that sort of deepened the characters and were a good step back and allowed the emotional stakes to build up a little bit more is when Sarah and Bear are on their lunch break at the store, and Sarah opens one of her college admission letters with her dad, played by Andy Richter. She doesn't get in, but the two of them, Bear and Sarah, just keep talking after, and they've had this sort of, strong conversation, the two of them sitting side by side. Clearly they're very comfortable. They lean their heads on each other, and I thought that was just a really sweet moment until Bear realizes that he's eating his dead cat because Nikki's demon cooked it up. Fucked up. I mean, that's just so mean-spirited and disturbing from Curry Barker, turning a very lovely situation and a lovely scene into something so goddamn rough to watch. And I really liked how that scene actually established that she has one letter left, and even Sarah, this kind of side character that is really has a crush on Bear, and I think Bear does secretly deep down like her as well, but just hasn't realized that she's the one that I should be with because we're just so right for each other and we can be honest and vulnerable with each other, versus Nikki, I'm just kind of chasing her down the entire time. We don't really have feelings for each other. It's not a real thing. It's me just having a little crush on her, and it's the girl that I'm never going to get, I really liked how it established that she has one more school that she can get into, like Sarah's kind of on her last hope here. And it would be such a nice thing if, she got her one wish Willow, and maybe Bear had used his wish in the past to be like, I wish Sarah would get into her school and was successful or something along those lines. But obviously he's not going to do that because he uses the one wish Willow at the start of the movie to just get this false relationship. But I think all of the music store stuff really does set up later in the film when they're in the car together, Sarah and Bear, which was my favorite scene in the entire movie, where they're having this really deep heart to heart and they're talking about what they want in relationships and what they want from the future and how they can maybe fix this situation with Nikki. And you can see Bear is actually kind of into Sarah and understands that, like, maybe I do have a crush for you and maybe you're the right person for me, when she says, like, I think you just need another sort of alt quiet girl. And that's when Bear says, like, a girl like you. And they're having this moment, they're about to kiss. And of course, the entire time I'm watching the scene, you just know, because of Curry Barker's training of my fucked up mentality, Nikki's gonna pop up in the back and something horrible is gonna happen. And slowly as the scene was going on, I'm like, oh, maybe she's not gonna pop up. And I'm like, no, don't let him trick you. She's gonna pop up. And then boom, out of nowhere, she just fucking sprints in frame, grabs Sarah's head, smashes it against the wheel, kills her. Incredibly dark moment after such another lovely scene between the two of them. Something horrible has to happen every time, and it's just so mean, so dark and out there from Curry Barker, and it's just really so fucked up. So he is just a demonic storyteller. That's the biggest compliment I can give him. But all of the Sarah stuff is just so heartbreaking. And of course, Bear reads her final letter after, because she was going to read it with him in the car. Then she's murdered, and she did get into her school, so she did have a future. And I think that really shows the villainy of Bear so well, and that, like, this is your fault. You literally have blood on your hands. You need to do something about this. And I think that is when he decides to take action, because he tries to use a new wish. He tries to get Ian to make the wish. He was told by Sarah, that Nikki and Ian have actually been hooking up for a couple of years every once in a while, and Nikki had friend zoned you a while back. And it's just like the devastating moment. And I think that's when Bear fully turns into a villain, and it's just like, I want to kill myself. I want to kill Nikki. I don't care. I need this to stop. And Ian doesn't believe him, wishes for $1 billion, gets it, and then is killed by Nikki in the very next scene. So there's just such a calamity of messed up things happening in the end of this film that I think it really comes to a really, really, really nice and tidy solution, with Bear swallowing all these pills because the only way out of the deal is death. And we see the pills at the start of the movie. It's sort of this Chekhov's gun. I thought the pill bottle said, was it like Barbara Bailey, which is his mother, I would presume, or his grandma, because he says it's his grandma's house, possibly briefly at one point, but I just really love the ending, how he takes all these pills. Nikki has a gun and is threatening to kill herself or kill him, and instead she kills Ian, but he dies. Nikki is released, and then we see the real Nikki come back to life. And it's this really fucked up ending where Nikki wakes up to 2 dead bodies around her, this horrible stuff all around the apartment, and you're unsure what's going to happen to her in the future. Is she going to be able to explain that, oh, he killed himself and killed his friend, or I killed him but I don't know what happened? Like, it's very clearly that Nikki is not going to get out of this unscathed. There will be legal trouble. It is not a happy ending to this film. It wraps it up very well and does establish that Bear was the villain of this story, and that these men that are so insecure and would rather go to these sort of supernatural lengths rather than just having an honest conversation and possibly being rejected are the issues. So I think that's all I got for Obsession. I think there's just so many fun little nuances and intricacies that are working here. I don't think it's the best film of the year. There's a couple little things holding it back from me, but goddamn, it is so solid, really enjoyable. I would absolutely watch it again. Go watch Obsession in theaters. You will not regret it. You will have such a fun time. But for now, let's jump into what else I watched. Alrighty, what else I watched? We have a lot to catch up on. I've got 2 books, 4 TV shows, and I think 8 movies. Sorry, 7 movies, but let's start with the books. So I've started Dune Messiah. I read the preface. I read the first chapter. Not a lot to report there, but I am going to start actually reading it. I just needed like a week off of an actual book after I finished Project Hail Mary, which was fantastic, by the way. Then this morning, I actually read Batgirl Redemption. So this is a story of Cassandra Cain, the daughter of an assassin who has become Batgirl later in the Bat family sort of history. And this was such a good comic book. I actually had so much fun with it. There's the daughter of Slade Wilson, all the Bat family. There's all these sisters that have been trained by Slade Wilson and Cain. But I'm going to keep working my way through my Batman collection. Lots of comics to read, but let's jump into the TV shows for now. Euphoria season 3, episode 1 to 4. So I'm almost caught up. I'm 1 episode behind. I'm going to try and catch up so I can watch it week to week. I know they're on episode 6 right now, so maybe I'll watch episode 5 today, then I can watch it live tonight. But season 3 has just been kind of a letdown. I think it's sort of losing anything that was sort of attractive or fun about the first season, where it's these kids that are going through these awful things. I will say season 3 is gorgeously shot. I know they shot it on VistaVision, which is absolutely insane. It's like the best looking worst show ever, other than maybe The Idol. Sam Levinson is just not a very interesting filmmaker. I think he goes for shock value and like atmospheric type feelings a lot of the time, and directs like almost high value or high production soap operas. So I don't know. I'm not really vibing with any of the storylines in season 3. I don't think any of them are particularly poignant or fun to watch, but I will keep watching Euphoria until the finale. Survivor 50 though, we have 1 episode left. It is the finale this Wednesday and it's not looking good, guys. So right now the final 5 are Rizzo, Joe, Jonathan, Tiff, and Aubrey. And I am very scared of what's going to happen in this finale. So I think the final 3 is probably going to be Rizzo, Aubrey, and Joe. I hope Tiffany can get in there because, for the love of God, her winning is the only thing that would save this season. Aubrey, boring winner. Joe, boring winner. Jonathan, boring winner. If Rizzo won, I would absolutely die laughing because it would make so many people mad, and it would make so many old school players mad that this like young 25, 26-year-old came in who just played the game back to back and won his second season. Would be pretty insane. It would also piss off a lot of people on the jury, I think, but there's no way he's going to get enough votes to win. Joe is just the most boring Survivor player of all time, like hands down. There has never been such a boring Survivor player apart from Joe. Jonathan, I just don't like him. I think he's an extremely boring guy, but also he just has all this like fake hokey health holistic bullshit going on, and it's just, he's not a fun guy. I don't know, he's not fun to watch. Tiff is a really good player, and I would love if Tiff won. I think she has a very difficult road to the final 3 because she straight up just has to win 2 immunity challenges and needs to really prove herself to the jury, make a big move by getting Rizzo or getting Aubrey out somehow, or getting Jonathan out. I wonder, do jury members really like Tiff? I think she's a likable person, but we'll see what goes down in the finale. I think ultimately it will come down to Aubrey winning because she just has so much luck on her side, and I think she has a lot of people from the jury kind of in her pocket, ready to vote for her. And she's made sort of floating alliances with some different people, or she's floated around and not really stayed too loyal for people. And almost by not being loyal to too many people, she can't hurt them when she votes them out. You know, she's been a part of some big votes, but hasn't really orchestrated something herself. So I don't know what to make of it. I think it's going to be a very subdued, possibly boring finale. I'm excited for the live reunion after, for people to start beefing with each other. Make sure you set your PVRs if you record Survivor to record whatever's after the live show as well, because it's probably going to run late. It's classic Survivor. But season 50, episode 12, that was it. We got one episode left and a live reunion. Let's see where it goes. Another show that I watched this week, though, The Punisher: One Last Kill, starring Jon Bernthal. This was a 50-minute special on Disney Plus, where it's Jon Bernthal, Frank Castle. He's going through Little Sicily, trying to kill the final gang member, or not get killed by the final gang member of the mafia that he killed in the TV show. I never watched the Punisher TV show. I don't really know what the storyline is there, but I don't know. I thought it was fine. It was pretty mediocre down the middle. I think Frank Castle, played by Jon Bernthal, is just so boring. He's so grunty and the whole time. The visual effects were pretty bad. There was this one frame that was kind of going multi-platinum on social media this week, with Jon Bernthal falling off a building and them doing a face replacement, but it looks like Joel from The Last of Us on PlayStation 3. I could not believe they left that in the show. They also had a bunch of statements prepared for after it released, so clearly someone at Disney was not happy that was the final product and really wanted to stand on their toes and shout at the internet that no, we did a good job and actually it was done practically and all this stuff. So I watched it. It's fine. I really only watched it because it's a lead up to Spider-Man Brand New Day in some ways. I rated it 3 stars. After that, though, I am trying to catch up on The Boys, but honestly, all the excitement from the first 2 episodes has died out really quickly. It's pretty much just become the Soldier Boy show with Jensen Ackles, and it's boring as hell. I think this last season is just so bland. So I finished episode 5 this week. Seems like it's just going to be a pretty subdued finale as well. Unfortunately, there's 3 episodes left for me to watch, and then it's done forever. We already know Vought Rising is going to be the next show, and they're really spending their time in this final season to establish Soldier Boy as the next character that we're going to follow. And it's a bit of a bummer, because I think, honestly, Jensen Ackles, not a good actor. I think he is just not interesting as Soldier Boy. He's extremely boring, and I don't know, I might watch Vought Rising in the future when it comes out. I might just check out of this whole universe, because I was sort of invested in Gen V. They're not going to continue that, so who cares? But okay, I got 7 movies to talk about. The first film I watched, I can't believe I didn't talk about this last week because I thought I did, but Pretty Lethal. It is this horror action ballerina movie. No, it's not the ballerina from the John Wick universe. It's about all these young ballerinas that are on a trip in Eastern Europe, and they get broken down and they go into this castle run by this former Russian ballerina, and they have to escape because they're taken hostage, stuff like that. It's exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of ballerinas are trapped in this building. They have to escape. It's exactly what's on the box, and I didn't hate it, but at the same time, I'm not going to remember this movie in 3 weeks. If you ask me about this movie, I will not remember it, because the performances are so exactly what they are. Sometimes when you watch a movie and it's exactly what you thought it was going to be, that's exactly what you want. This movie, I was just like, oh, that was exactly what, unfortunately, I thought it was going to be. A straight to Amazon Prime Gen Z ballerina movie that's action, and they all have to team up and learn the power of girlhood, I guess, or teamwork, and it was just not very entertaining to me. So I gave it 2 stars. After that, I dove into the prequels this week, and today, actually, after I finish editing, I'm going to watch the sequels for Star Wars. So Phantom Menace. You know what? I'm going to stick up for Phantom Menace here. I think it is a mostly bad to unwatchable movie, except for, obviously, like many people have said, the pod race is one of the best sequences in science fiction film ever. I think the sound design, the racing, the visual effects, pod racing just goes so hard. I cannot believe that sequence exists. God bless George Lucas for giving us pod racing. And Duel of the Fates. I think genuinely Duel of the Fates is a heartbreaking, crushing Star Wars moment that makes me sad every single time. As much as people maybe weren't ready for this when the prequels came out, I think the story of the prequel series is actually really good with all of the political elements, and it's so reflective of the time that we're going through today. I mean, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, we have blockades and these secret councils that are breaking off. Episode 2, it's like the US leaving NATO pretty much and seeing how that goes off on its own thing, and secret secret militaries being built by leaders and rearming themselves. And then we have episode 3 where turns out, someone is essentially being groomed to be a new leader and be put in power. Fantastic episode 3, by the way. I think Revenge of the Sith is so fucking good. So The Phantom Menace, I gave 3 stars. I think it's like not horrible, but it's pretty bad in some ways. But there's just like these little entertaining parts that you're like, no, there is a story here. Like Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, so good. Attack of the Clones, pretty unable to defend that. I think the love story is beautiful, but it's just, very creepy. And there's a lot of moments in this that are very bad green screen and CGI. Then Revenge of the Sith, I think, is easily the best film of the trilogy. Who are we joking? I gave it 4 stars. So like I said, this weekend, I'm going to watch the sequel trilogy. Very excited because I haven't fully watched through the sequel trilogy in a few years. After that, we have The Sheep Detectives, which, you know what? I posted a review of this on my social media, and it was one of my like better performing reviews in a while. I do not know why. Maybe that's just like this movie for me, because I think this movie, I watched the trailers and I was like, I'm unsure what I'm going to think of this. But at the end of the day, I actually really enjoyed it. I think it was a beautiful story about grief and death and community and acceptance, but it's also a great murder mystery where there's this group of British sheep that are read stories every night, murder mysteries by Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman is killed and the sheep got to figure it out. It's exactly what's on the box is what I thought, and I got what I wanted plus so much more. There's actually a lot of emotional heart to this story that I really enjoyed, and I was shocked by how moved I was. I was moved to tears. I gave it 3.5 stars. But the final 2 movies I watched this week were both Boots Riley films. So Friday night, I was invited to the Elevation Pictures screening with Boots Riley in attendance for I Love Boosters. This was a Q&A. It was really fun. So he came out, he introduced the movie, we watched the movie, he came out after, did a Q&A. Really, really, really good time. Jagmeet Singh was there, weirdly enough, the former NDP leader. That sort of threw me off. I also met a couple of people that I know from the online blogging space, which were really nice. We had a good conversation, talked about the movie as well. And at times, I think it's biting off a little bit more than it can chew purely on a technological level. I think there is a gimmick in this movie, a sci-fi gimmick that it tries to over-explain a few times. And I think Boots Riley is almost too smart for his own good, and he really tries to explain the science of it. But I still really, really, really enjoyed it. So I gave it 3.5 stars. But actually, before I watched I Love Boosters, I had to go back and watch Sorry to Bother You, a film from 2018 that I had never seen. It has been in my watch list since it came out because I've only heard fantastic things about Sorry to Bother You. Stars Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Stephen Yeun. It's a very, very, very fun story. And it made me realize there is genuinely no one making films like Boots Riley. He is a one-of-a-kind guy. The use of miniatures, animatronics, special effects that he does in both Sorry to Bother You and I Love Boosters is really remarkable. And his stories are so inherently pro-union. They're about celebrating unions and fighting the good fight and teaming up with people for the greater good. I loved both movies. I thought they were both incredibly smart films that are very interesting topics that we are kind of going through right now with trying to fight back with this middle class and figure out how we can try to just get billionaires and rich people to pay their fair share. And because there's plenty enough to go around, we're all struggling to get by, and yet we still have billionaires that will, oh my God, they paid their taxes. They paid, 300 million in taxes, but they're still quadrillionaires or whatever and still have so much money left. And how many times has it been said that 1 billionaire alone and like the amount of rich people that can just solve world hunger instantly but don't, I think is a really shocking thing. So Sorry to Bother You, I gave 4 stars. I Love Boosters, I gave 3.5 stars. Next week, we'll have lots of fun stuff to talk about. We have Shrek, we have some Star Wars movies. I might watch Incredibly Bright Creatures and another couple streaming movies that I've missed out on. I'm also going to have a new video game to talk about with Lego Batman coming out, but that will be next week. For now, that has been What Else I Watched. And I think that about does it for episode 120, talking about Obsession, a very exciting, thrilling, terrifying, hilarious, depressing horror movie from Neon. Curry Barker, very interesting filmmaker who I'm excited to see his next projects. Also the cast, very excited to see what Indy Navarrete goes on to do because she is fantastic in this movie. But as always, please rate and review the show 5 stars wherever you get your great podcasts like Watcher of All Things, whether it is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Acast. We are, of course, an Acast produced show. You can leave a comment right underneath the episode on Spotify. Let me know what you thought of Obsession. What's your favorite horror movie this year? What books are you reading right now? What's your favorite movie of the year in general? If you're on the YouTube channel, hit like, subscribe, comment down below. What'd you think of Obsession? What's your TV show that you're watching right now? Are you excited for the summer movies? What's the blockbuster you're looking forward to most? All that good stuff. Hit like, subscribe, notification bell so you know when new videos and podcast episodes drop. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email me, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, and find me on social media. Instagram and Threads are just at watcherofallthings, and the TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. I post on social media every single day, so you can find all that good stuff. All these videos that I talk about that I'm making, all of that is on the link tree. You can go through my various accounts, follow me wherever. You can also follow me on my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70. I am a religious Letterboxd user. Follow me on there, drop a comment under one of my reviews that you found me through the show, and I will follow you back. Next week, we have a Star Wars movie in theaters for the first time since 2019. It is, of course, The Mandalorian and Grogu. I cannot believe that I am not excited for a Star Wars movie to come out. I don't know. I'm kind of going into it open-minded. I think I'm seeing it in standard, which is really weird because they're just not expanding the release times or show times for the movie, but that will be next week. For now, this is the way. Thank you all so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.